Ankh and Ma'at, Ankh and Ma'at, Ankh and Ma'at. I want to welcome you to Kemetic Ascension, brought to you by the Shrine of Ma'at. My name is Jabari Osaze, also known as, looking at myself in the camera is interesting. My name is Jabari Osaze, also known as Heru Jeden Ma'at, Aten Ra. I am the co-chief priest of the Shrine of Ma'at, and I am so excited to be here with you. For those of you who are regular participants in Kemetic Ascension, I'm sure you can tell I'm not in the shrine. So for those of you who don't know, you might wonder, well, where is he? I'm actually in Las Vegas, Nevada, coming to you live from the hotel that looks like a large black Merkut. That's where I'm coming from. I'm coming to you from the Luxor Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. I had the wonderful opportunity, the honor, truly, to do several tours of the Discovering King Tut's Tomb exhibit, which is here at the Luxor Hotel. And so it was such a wonderful, wonderful experience to be able to connect with the folks here in Las Vegas, even to meet some of you who have partaken in Kemetic Ascension, and even to meet one of our wonderful initiates that is here in the Las Vegas area. I'm talking about Sinette Ashley, who actually came through, and it was great to see her in person. So I want to say Ankh and Ma'at to you all, greet you all, welcome you all, and also you should know that I'm going to ask you to do two things. Please, as we begin Kemetic Ascension, I'm going to ask you to tell us where in the world you are and how long you have been part of Kemetic Ascension. Those are the two questions. Where in the world are you? Where are you on the back of our Father Geb? Where are you in the world? And how long have you been part of Kemetic Ascension? Those are the two questions. And I see that at least one of our full members, Sinette Cheryl, actually is already telling us that she is from the DMV. You know, that's the area where the District of Columbia or Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia are. They're sort of in this area where they're all kind of together. So folks call it the DMV area. I know that most of you on the East Coast know what that is, right? Not the Department of Motor Vehicles. But some of you are from a long distance away. Tell us where you are. I see Sen Atan coming in from Chicago, one of our full members. Wonderful. It is good to see you. Question Me is from Hoover, Alabama. And he says that he's been partaking for about a year. We see so many of our members. Sinette Stephanie, we see Sinette Stella from Montclair, New Jersey, and for more than 10 years. And that means that she's going back with us all the way to the Kemetic Legacy Today time. We see Sakina Ra in Grand Forks, Dakota. Send Jason Holmes, a full member, coming to us from Lincoln, Nebraska for about 5 years. How are you, dear brother? And I'm seeing Sister Fiona coming from the UK for over a year. I might have missed a few of you. Let me scroll up a little bit here. I'm going to also say to you that you're probably expecting to hear Anika, the co-chief priest of the shrine, her voice. She's in the room, but a little bit under the weather. So she is actually not here, and she's not here with me in Las Vegas either. So we're on different parts of the country. We're in different parts of the country today. Who else do we see? I think I see here Neophyte Sage, Marlin in UK, London. Is that the city, Marlin? I see Bro Pimpanzi, one of our full members. And he's coming to us from Philadelphia. Ronald Green from Alton, Illinois. We see MF Dreadson from Kentucky checking in. There you go. I'm seeing another person in the UK, Katrine Hunt in the UK. Marcita Jeffrey from Marcita, Ohio. I think your name is Marcita. I think you're saying that you're coming to us from Ohio for about 5 years. I see Asar from Philly watching for 5 years. I even see Michelle Moody said, started watching me on Sonetter TV. Peace to Sonetter TV. By the way, you should know we're going to put the link in the chat for next week's discussion debate. More about that later. I see Denise One saying what's up from Asbury Park, New Jersey. What's up to you? Peace, peace, peace. Gil Prescott from Buffalo, New York. Sen Angelicon Mallow, one of our full members, coming to us from Naples, Florida. How are you and that beautiful family, Sen Angelicon? I see Sinette Stephanie coming from Seattle, Washington. We have lots of folks checking in here. I think that the folks coming to us from the UK are the furthest away today so far. I think they are the furthest away so far. Where else do we see? We see Sinette Shenka, also known as Olivia McGraw, coming to us from the DMV area. Anken Ma'at to you. Anken Ma'at, one of our full members. Heru Asar Ankh Amin Ra, coming to us from Dallas, Texas. Wonderful, Dallas, Texas. I actually see Demir Zach saying he's from the Sudan and he's been watching for about 2 years. Where are you in the Sudan? Are you there now or are you elsewhere and you're from the Sudan? I'd love to know what that's been like as well. We see Brother Dulani coming to us from London, and Righteous and Asada. Oh, Righteous and Asada, Anken Ma'at to you, full members of the Shrine of Ma'at. We also see Ready, Set, Build expressions. And that is Sinette B, who is actually one of our full members. She's in Asheville, North Carolina. And you know she was straight from the streets of Harlem, straight from the village of Harlem. We miss you. Hopefully we'll see you too soon. Tweak Wellbeing, Sister Woman, Sister Sacred Woman, coming to us from Sacred Woman, that was created by the wonderful Elder Queen Afua. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Coming from Boston. Let's see. You hope Ntepi Anika is doing well. She's a little under the weather, but I don't think that she's doing poorly. She just needs to rest. And then we see Ashley, Sinette Ashley Amara, and she is from Las Vegas. We had dinner the other night, and she actually also came to the tour. We had a really, really great time. And so I want to say Anken Ma'at to Sinette Ashley, who I always get a chance to see when I'm coming out here. Sinette Ashley might be making a move. I don't know if I should be announcing this here. You could tell us if you want to tell folks where you're going to be soon. I see Neophyte saying, did you do the weigh-in with Garfield at ISUPK? We did not do the weigh-in because, unfortunately, Brother Garfield's uncle died and he had to jet off to Jamaica. And so hopefully we'll be doing some promotional stuff this week. Whether Garfield is back or not, I'm probably going to link up with Garfield, with Sonetter, and we'll do some promotional stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. I see SK Allen saying peace. That is Anpu there. I always call him Anpu. That's Brother Anpu. SK Allen is one of the brothers that is part of Mastering Mindsets Las Vegas, the organization that brought me out to do the tours. It's always good to see you, brother. I had a great time seeing you and your wonderful family, your kids who are studying and doing work. One kid was on the side writing things down in the Metanetter. The other one was asking questions. The other one was looking around, and one of his children's name is Heru. When I saw the falcon and I said, what is this falcon's name? This little man stepped forward and with confidence in his eyes said, that is Heru. I can only imagine what I would have been doing. I believe he's 7 today if I had known about the traditions of ancient Africa when I was 7. It was wonderful to see you, brother, and your wonderful family. I'm seeing Wayne Porter saying he's been following me since Sonetta on 125th Street. I think Sonetta is really chomping at the bit to go back to 125th Street. The pandemic has kept him away a little bit, but he'll be back. I see Sinette Cochier from Detroit, and you're actually at home because Sinette Cochier does personal coaching and really the kind of work to assist people to access their greater selves. So she's always all over the place. She's actually in Detroit this Sunday. We see Enzil Dantor. Where are you? Now, Azili Dantor, I know that you've been on before. Tell us where you are. I see our powerful brother, Sekou Kella, a wonderful scholar in his own right. Someone I was just mentioning, Brother Sekou, as we were talking about the folks on Sonetta just last night. Brother Sekou, you were never far away from my conversations. Very powerful brother. Where are you in Canada? I think he's in Canada. Where are you, Brother Sekou? Tell everyone here where you're originally from and where you are. This is one of those brothers that reads everything and is really able to talk to us about the traditions of our now ancestor scholars, as they have been really in many ways insulted quite a bit these days. He's come forward and really stood up for our ancestor scholars in a way that few can. So I want to send peace to my dear brother Sekou. Sometimes they think that Sekou and Jabari are in the background plotting stuff. The reality is I have never met Brother Sekou in person. In actuality, the reason why we sound the same is because we read all the same stuff. It's the powerful stuff from our ancestors, and so that's really important. I see Azili Dantor says that they're in Alabama. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And Dwa for sending Anika, Hemnetter and Tepi, the Hemet Netter and Tepi, the divine healing energy, because she needs it. She's not horrible, but she's really not feeling great. She needs to rest and relax, but she's still here. She's just not on camera. I see Sanette Yeneth, Aoife Kemi. We had dinner the other evening. She is really close with Sanette Ashley, and she was on the tour, had dinner. It was wonderful meeting you, Sanette. I'm hoping that we get to spend more time together as well. I also see that Sanette, I think this is Sanette B saying she met a Mexican brother that looks just like me. He's light skinned, but the features, the glasses, the beard, the height, really? I hope you took a picture of my Mexican doppelganger so that I can see him. Sekou Kella's asking what are my views on Kwanzaa. People say that it's stolen Jewish culture of Hanukkah. One of the reasons why people connect it to Hanukkah is because of the lighting of candles, but certainly simply because we're lighting candles, that doesn't mean that it is a Hanukkah celebration. Clearly, it's a celebration of harvest. Our African ancestors celebrated the harvest quite frequently in the ancient world and even today. When I was in Ghana last year, we went to this big harvest festival. They are common. We've always done that. Now, Kwanzaa doesn't celebrate us bringing forth corn and grain and all those other things that you could celebrate. It takes it more philosophically. What are the things that we've done in the last year that we ought to celebrate that we were able to bring into existence? That form of harvest. And so I used to be a really, really, really public proponent of Kwanzaa and had these large Kwanzaa events. I really wish that I'd be able to get back to doing that. I'm so busy doing other things that it is absolutely difficult. But I truly believe that Kwanzaa brought to us, founded by the elder scholar Maulana Karenga, is an important celebration, and I think that it is amazing. So yeah, I support Kwanzaa. I certainly support Kwanzaa. I see Tehuti Ma'at Ra Sirius in Wichita, Kansas, one of those folks that's always with us and is also one of the moderators on Sonetter's channel. Peace to you, dear brother. Anika is saying dua for your donations to Sanette Shenka. Let me say to you, We don't do this for money, but we need money to do it. It's just that simple. We need money to be able to run the Shrine of Ma'at, to put forward Kemetic Ascension. We would love your support if you are able to. You can always help support us on PayPal, on Cash App. On Cash App, just look for $ Shrine of Ma'at. On PayPal, you can look for, you can actually send it to Anika. If you could even put it in the chat, it'd be wonderful. And very, very important that we get your support so we're able to do what we do. And I should also say to you that we are so honored for your likes and for your stars on Facebook. Let me say that this is a wonderful time for you to send the link, to share the link with folks that you know should be here with us. We all know that there are people who are connected to African culture. We all know that there are people who are studying and looking for more resources, a better understanding of not just how they can understand the legacies of our ancient African ancestors, but how they can bring them back into existence today. And that is precisely what we do at the Shrine of Ma'at. So please I really hope that you will bring forward your support so that we're able to do this. I see Demure Zach says that he's also Nubian, and it's sad that people in the diaspora don't know that the original man, that the Africans were the original people and creators of civilization. We know the truth here. Our bloodline passes down the original story to us. Brother, I could not say it better myself. Brother Demir Zach, thank you for those words. I wonder how recently you've been to back to the Sudan, because we are trying to actually go and take groups to the Sudan as well. I see, Drip Fire, the RBG stacker. Is that Brother Augustus? How are you, brother? Listen, when we were doing things in person, we would see Brother Augustus all the time. He's coming to us from Brooklyn. It's wonderful to see that you're here, brother. Sinette Olivia, are you planning to come to New York in February? Or are you hoping that we're going to come down to the DMV area in February? We do need to plan to come to the DMV area to do some touring, to meet the family. So definitely it's something that we would like to do. Am I staying at the Luxor? Yes. You did notice that, Senaton. Look at the window. You see the sharp angle of the window? I'm actually staying in the hotel that was meant to look like a Merkut. It's an amazing experience to be at the Luxor Hotel. I'm going to tell you that while I would love to enjoy it more, they have that large Tom Hu looking, European looking Heru M. Akhet that they would call a Sphinx in front of it. So that spoils it a little bit, but definitely it is a beautiful space. And I wish that you could see the mountains off in the distance. Las Vegas is truly a beautiful place to spend some time. And I'm honored that I'm able to be here. By the way, when you are in the Luxor Hotel, it's fascinating because the building is a Merkut, what the Greeks called a pyramid. When you get in the elevators don't go up and down technically. They go at an angle. So the elevator moves at a 39-degree angle up the sides of the Merkut in order for you to get to your room. And I'm on the 17th floor. So it's really wonderful that I get to just be in this space, even though the people that put it together don't know the true history of our Kemetic tradition. I see Priestess Dior Nelson. How are you? Out of Bennu, out of Phoenix. It is wonderful to see that you're here. Anken Ma'at. We're going to do so much more with our wonderful priestess who was made by the same parents that Anika and I were, made a priestess by Baba Heru, doing some wonderful work in Phoenix. We're going to be seeing much more of her, and I can't wait for you to get to know her, for the family to get to know her as well. I see Sanet Tashi, Anken Ma'at Sanet Tashi, one of those members of the Shrine of Ma'at that is very active, also a very active member of the Lighthouse family. It is wonderful to see you. I don't think I've seen you since I was in Detroit. I'm glad that you're still out there doing the work. I see Brother Augustus saying he was in the Luxor Hotel in 2013. It's a very interesting place to stay. Dua for your donations. Dua, dua, dua. I see Sinette, Coach Ye actually said she just left Vegas. I wish that I had known. Maybe we could have linked up before you left. I see Brother Wayne Porter said he was born in Rosewood. What? He wants to gift us with a picture of the actual train that they forced people to flee in. I would love that picture. You know, as I'm passionate about history, I would love to know more about that experience. Does that mean that your family was in Rosewood at the time? I would love to hear more about that. Are you saying, send Demore Zach, that you're in Khartoum right now? Send Demore Zach, please send us an email, because if you're on the ground in the Sudan, we want to be able to work with you. And no, we have not visited the Merkutu, the Meru, the pyramids there in the Sudan. We are dying to go. Anika and I have been plotting our visit to the Sudan probably for 10 years. And unfortunately, with things that have occurred, those plans kind of have crumbled. So we would really love to be able to come to the Sudan. Please send us an email. You can even send an email at Jed at Shrine of Ma'at, Jed at shrineofma'at.org. And we would love to be able to connect with you so that we're able to spend some time in the Sudan and take people to see the wonderful monuments that our Cushitic ancestors created, as they were also the parents of Kemet. Powerful, powerful, powerful experience that we would love to be able to go. And I see that Shahid Douglas says he's in the Lou. Do you mean St. Louis? You mean St. Louis. I think he means St. Louis. Confirm that for me, please. Let me go ahead and say Ankin Ma'at to you all. I'm honored that you are with us, that you're spending part of your Sunday with us. Today, we will be talking about the winter solstice. As you know, the winter solstice approaches. Wednesday is the winter solstice. We are looking forward to this. And you know, the Shrine of Ma'at celebrates the winter solstice every year. In fact, we celebrate the solstices and the equinoxes every year. And we're really looking forward to you being part of that. If you're able to come, we would love for you to meet us at the Tekken in Central Park at 7 p.m. on Sunday. We would love for you to be with us as we stomp out a pep. We also see, I see Jason said that he represents the east side. I knew he was going to say that he represents the east side of East St. Louis. I knew he was going to say that. So absolutely, I'm glad that you all are there. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to begin our ascension the way that we begin anything of importance, with that ceremony that was brought in its current configuration by our elder, the amazing, amazing Ankh man known as Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samaj Se Ptah, the holder of the shrine of Ptah and the creative master of the studio of Ptah. It is called the opening of the way. So today, I'm doing this by myself. Anika's not with me. I'm going to try to push this back. Hopefully you can see me, and you can certainly also see the angle of the window as I push things back. Please stand with me. Stand with me so that you are able to do the opening of the way. This is not theater. You should be doing it with me as well. You are going to stand. The way of the elder is to stand east. The Shrine of Ma'at begins north. We do it in both ways, but today we're going to ask you to stand north. I'm going to simply stand towards you. I've already done the opening of the way for this day. So I'm going to ask you to stand north. I'm going to face you, and we're going to do it. So let's stand. You're going to stand in the position of adoration. You're going to put your left foot almost like you've taken a short stride from that you're about to walk. Your left foot's going to be a bit forward. You're going to expose your palms in front of you. And as you expose your palms in front of you, put the left hand a bit further forward than the right hand. And the right hand can also be a bit lower than the left hand. This is what we call today the pose of adoration. It is how we both give and receive divine energy. So please stand in this position with us as we do the opening of the way. We're going to take a breath and then we're going to chant the word for divine everlasting life, Ankh. Let us begin. Anetrak in Bedhet, Nuke in Bedhet, Anetrak Hapi, Nuke Hapi, Twau Inter, turn to your right. Anetrak Serket, Nuke Serket, Anetrak Kebsenuf, Nuke Kebsenuf, Twau Inter. Anetrak Ast, Nuke Ast, Anetrak Amset, Nuke Amset, Twau Inter. Anetrak Neat, Nuke Neat, Anetrak Dwamutef, Nuke Dwamutef, Twau Inter. Anetrak Newt, Nuke Newt, Anetrak Geb, Nuke Geb, Twau Inter. Anetrak Shoo, 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 Nuke Shoo. Anetrak Tefnut, 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 Nuke Tefnut, Twau Inter. Anetrak Paut in Teru, Nuke Paut in Teru, Anetrak and Boo in Teru, Nuke and Boo in Teru, Twau Inter. Twau Inter. Dwa, dwa, dwa to you for doing the opening of the way with us. I want you to remember that the opening of the way is that ceremony that reminds us that we are connected to the cardinal points, that we in fact are the cardinal points, that you are a divine entity, and that all of the rights and responsibilities of the universe are yours. You are divine. So I'm hoping that you remember to do this. This ceremony is of critical importance. And I also see that we're seeing that Demir Zach is saying that his family owns a large amount of land and a big house. We would love to know how we can connect with you. Please email us because we would love to be able to take folks to see Nubia as we move forward. I see Sinette Cassie. Cassie Shep is in. Ankh and Ma'at to you. I believe she's coming to us from Philadelphia still. How are you? I hope all is well, dear sister, one of our full members. Good to see you. I'm sure I've missed a few people as I was speaking. I actually see Tone Johnson also came in from the DMV area. So many of you have come and spent your time with us. Divine Crowd, 5D TV is here. Ankh and Ma'at to you. I'm so pleased that you're here with us. So at this point, we do what we call Hesse. We do what we call Hesse. And you know that I'm on the road. And because I'm on the road, I don't have the opening of, I don't have the the Hesi cue that we would normally do. We're going to do Hesi on the fly. Let me ask, which Hesi would you like to do today? Which Hesi would you like to do today? Would you like to do the oldie but goodie? The kumra, kumra, kumherura? Would you like to do our simple Ankuja Sanem? Would you like to do our Asar Hesi? Asar, Asar, Asar. Which one would you like to do today? And as we're waiting for those answers to come in, we are actually seeing Senaton is asking, he purchased a crook and flail. Is it okay to have them in your hands while you perform the opening of the way? Of course it is. Of course it is. The crook and the flail are symbols of divine authority. And so hopefully we hope that you'll do that. Rupu Nuku. I see a vote for Rupu Nuku. I see the Asar Hesi. You're all suggesting Hesi. You're all suggesting different Hesi though. I think Sinette Ashley is saying the Ankuja Saneb. Ankuja Saneb. Ankuja Saneb. There are a number of Hesis that we have. I'm hoping that, I don't know which one to do. I think I'm going to do the oldie but goodie as Cassie is describing. Sinette Cassie is suggesting that we do the one that was popular in the Shrine of Ptah, the Kumra Hesi, and we can do that. By the way, I see, Sentone, that you sent your application. We will take a look to see whether we've received it. We probably have. We're going to be answering folks who have sent applications shortly. What is he referring to? He's talking about the fact that applications for admission, full admission to the Shrine of Ma'at are now live. Go to our website at shrineofma'at.org and you will be able to become a full member of the Shrine of Ma'at. Initiation is what we call it, the introduction to the Kemetic mystery system. It begins in late February, early March. So this is the time for you to send your application. You might say, well, why am I sending it in December if it doesn't begin until February or March? The reason why we receive them early is because we are going to interview everyone that submits an application. We want to make sure that we are the right shrine home for you and that you are the right shrine member for us. So everyone that submits an application receives an interview. And so I'm hoping that you are going to become full members. If you are, I really hope that you're doing that. And I'm really pleased to hear that so many of you are going to be joining us. We can't wait to see that happen. Okay, so let's do the Kumra Hesi. The Kumra Hesi, you should know, is one, as I said, that was popular in the Shrine of Ptah, our shrine, our home shrine, and he was actually, it was created by Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Ptah, our shrine elder. The funny thing is that when Anika and I came forward into the shrine, no one taught us the Hesi. So sometimes they just break into it and we'd be like, well, is someone going to teach us how to do this Hesi? That was, it was really, really funny that is how it worked. But we did finally get to learn the Hesi. And it's simply, its translation is something like, the mystery of the hidden sun is revealed to my face. The mystery of the hidden sun is revealed to my face. In many ways, it is connected, directly connected to these celebrations that we have about the movements of Ra. So as we talk about the winter solstice, certainly it is in divine order. So take a listen. The Hesi, now you can do this with us, please. It begins like this. Kumra, kumra, kumherura, kumheru, heru, ra, ra, kumra, ra, 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 kumherura, kumheru, heru, ra, ra, kumra, kumra, kumherura, kumheru, heru, ra, ra, kumra, ra, 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 kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, kumra, kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, ra, 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 kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, kumra, kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, ra, 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 kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, kumra, kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, ra, 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 kumherura, kumheru, herurara. One more. Kumra, kumra, kumherura, kumheru, herurara, kumra, ra, 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 kumherura, kumheru, heru, ra, ra. That is the Hesi that we heard when we became members of the Shrine of Ptah. And so I'm hoping that you will be familiar with it soon and that you will do it as well. Ankh Ma'at to send Larry Jackson. I'm looking to see that they will never leave your side. Sanatan, I'm not sure what the question was. I hope you got an answer. It might have been the answer about having the Heka and the Keka. Remember, the hook, the crook, and the flail are also known as the Heka. The Heka is the crook, and the Keka is the flail. The Heka and the Keka, these are names of those divine implements, at least two of the names of the divine implements. Let's see. Are there other questions? I see Sen Allen Mayu is here. Another one of our full members. Ankh Ma'at to you, dear brother. Let's see. He didn't type it, but I did say it was a typing would be hard because remember, I'm here by myself, so I'm doing everything. So stopping to type would be difficult. But yes, of course, you can have the crook and the flail with you as you do that. It should be a powerful reminder of who you are and what your work must do. Ankh Ma'at to you, Amun Zulu, as well. So at this point, what we usually do is we go into what we call a word from the Seba'it, the word from the Seba'it. And you should know the Seba'it is actually the wisdom literature of ancient Kemet. It is the wisdom literature of ancient Kemet. It is of critical importance for us to remember as we are going about our daily business in this modern, very secular world, that our ancestors attempted to describe how we should live, how we should behave, what we should do as we're living in the world that we're living in. And in doing that, I hope that you will recognize that our ancestors dealt with many of the same challenges that we are dealing with, and left us writings to attempt to describe how to live a divinely balanced life, even in this challenging world that we live in. Ankh Ma'at to Sanet Adenike from the Gambia. Ankh Ma'at to you, dear Sanet. I'm so glad that you're here with us. So we should read the writings, the words of our ancestors. We should understand that which they have attempted to bring forward in power to us, so that we are able to be our strongest selves, because we know it ain't always easy to live in Ma'at, to live in divine balance. I know that it is challenging when you live in this very sensual world, this very challenging world. But our ancestors sought to give us an understanding on how we could do that. So we do, in honor of that, a word from the Seba'it. Sabaite is the name of the wisdom literature of Kemet, and it is the oldest body of literature in the world. The oldest books in the world come to us from this genre. And so I'm hoping that you will read along with us. Today, we're going to be talking about the winter solstice. And as we talk about the winter solstice, hopefully you will not only understand that our Kemetic ancestors viewed this as an extremely important behavior to engage in, but they didn't only do that, but they also understood that recognizing the movements of Ra, the movements of the sun, are one of the most powerful ways for us to recognize the concept of as above, so below. That as we look at the movements of the heavens, the bodies in the heavens, we are able to find a better understanding on how we should behave here on this plane as well. Dua to you, Sen Jason, for giving the spelling of Sabaite. Yes, that is what we're referring to. And so today we are talking about the wisdom in the Kemetic winter solstice observance. So let me ask, what are you looking at here? What is this image that we have on the screen? Tell us what you think it is. I know you see that there are two ladies and that they have their hands. By the way, this is another version of, in this instance, a specialized version of the position of adoration. Can you see that? What are we looking at? What is this symbol and why are we connecting it to the winter solstice? Does it have deeper meaning? What are the symbols? Did you notice that the two ladies here have different items, symbols, headdresses on? Who are they? And how does this connect to the winter solstice? I see that Sanette Shenka, also known as Olivia, and Sanette Ashley are saying that we are seeing the resurrection. Yes, dwa, 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 that is good. Sen Jason says the Jed pillar and the divine Mary. Yes, the Mary. We're calling them the Mary because that is part of what they were called in the ancient world. Mer or Mer is actually the word for love. And so when you say Mary, what we're saying is that these two ladies are the beloved ones. And this is important. Sanette Shenka says that they are raising the Jed pillar. That is precisely what they are doing. And that's the reason why you see their hands in this position, one up and one down, because not only are they giving it energy, they are raising it. The Jed pillar, the item in the middle of that image that has those 4 discs on the pillar itself, you should recognize that it is a symbol for the backbone of Asar. Asar being the symbol of divine resurrection, the symbol of the conquering of death, the symbol of the deity, the divine entity that symbolically exists in the afterlife to greet us all as we become ancestors. This is important. This is important. And dua to you also giving us the names of the ladies. We see Ast and we see Inbethet. Now I notice that Soul Sojourner says Inbethet and Osset. First of all, let me say to you, whether you say Osset or Ast, please don't argue over that. Those are both really, really good ways to render the name of this divine mother force. Okay? But notice that some of the folks are actually saying that we're seeing Austin and Bedhead, but they're giving you a different order. Which one is Austin? Which one is in Bedhead? Based on those headdresses, can you tell which? Oh, Soul Sojourner is Priestess Dior. Okay, Ankin Ma'at to you. Of course, she's a ringer. Of course, she's going to tell us that. Of course, you told us that. She's a ringer. So as you look at this, can you tell which one is which? Of course, our priestess out in Bennu says Inbet Het is on the left. When you look at that headdress, you're going to see that it looks like there's a rectangular piece closest to her head. That is a representation of a space, a house, a building, right? And then you're going to see something that looks like a bowl on top. That literally is the word for Lord or lady. So Inbet Het in some ways means the lady of the house, the mistress of the house. By the way, mistress is the female counterpart to master. I know that we've used it in a very different way in the Western world today, but that is the actual usage of the word mistress. So she is the lady of the house. Her headdress actually is the glyph for the glyphs for her name. And if you look closely, you'll even see that the feminine half circle is in the middle of the house. So they're even giving you the het, Inbet. Actually, it's the Inbet or Nebet. So the T on the end of Neb is what you're seeing that little T for. So she is the lady of the house. I like how Sanet Shenka says she's the mistress. That's right. We're going to take control of the English language. It was forced on us, but we're going to fix it. I like that better than mistress because mistress has a different connotation today. So let's call her the mistress of the house. And on the right, we actually see Ast. She has the throne on her head, right? She has the throne on her head. So we are actually seeing that these two powerful ladies are the ladies who assist in the resurrection of Asar. Let's continue. How many of you saw this? How many of you saw this? Now, you might have seen some of the sort of the popular descriptions of this, but I want you to know that this actually is a scholarly journal article. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm not showing you the popular depiction. Sometimes what happens is news sources, websites, news programs on television, on cable, they get a hold of some of these scholarly journals and they report them. I want to show you the scholarly journal article. This is important. There is scholarship in this particular designation that was announced. I believe this was announced last week. If it wasn't last week, it was the week before, but definitely announced this December. This December. Why am I showing you the scholarly article? Well, you should know that part of what I do is I both read the popular items and I read the scholarly journals. Part of what my mission is to tell the story of our African ancestors. And sometimes those of you who are aware of some of the things that are happening on the internet, on social media, some of the conversations that we're having, sometimes there are people who say that Jabari is making up some of this stuff, or perhaps if I'm not making it up, I'm getting from sources that are not using scholarly rigor in order to describe the Kemetic tradition. One brother even says Jabari metaphysicalizes the Kemetic tradition. Like, in other words, I'm making it sound like it's New Age when the Kemetic people did not do that. One of the things I have been challenged about, if you've watched Sonnetter and you know about the basis of my upcoming debate, one of the things I've been challenged about is the concept that the Kemetic people were the first to create a celebration which would later become the Christmas celebration. And one of the things that my opponent, Brother Garfield Reed, says is he says that now that he's exposed me, Jabari is never going to say that Kemet is the origin of Christmas, December 25th. He's saying it very intentionally because he thinks that I'm going to be slippery, foolish enough to fall down one of his traps. The reality is I saw his trap coming before it came out of his mouth. The reality is that our ancestors followed the movements of the heavens, and particularly the movements of the sun, of Ra. And the most important day of the year with regard to following the movements of the sun was that day that we could call the winter solstice. the winter solstice. And they used the movements of the sun as they appear from our vantage point on Earth as a description of resurrection, of rebirth. And that later goes into the Christmas celebration that occurs on December 25th. Now, of course, Christians today have fixed that celebration on December 25th. And one of the traps that he'd like me to do, it's a really silly trap, is he wants me to say that, yes, the Kemetic people celebrated December 25th. There was no word December. There was no word December. And certainly they would not have described it as December 25th. What they were focused on is the winter solstice. And so this scholarly paper describes the fact that they have now recognized that tombs in southern Kemet, in the area that is known just opposite of Elephantine Island is what they call it now. This is where the Nubians spend most of their time. They have now found tombs from the Middle Kingdom. This is very early. In fact, the tomb that they're reporting on primarily is from around 1850 BCE. We're saying that that tomb is nearly 4,000 years old. Nearly 4,000 years old. And these tombs are organized towards the winter solstice. And in fact, not only are they organized to the winter solstice, they also had an area in them where the light of the winter solstice would be able to come through and shine on a statue of the person who had made their transition as an ancestor, because they were recognizing that the winter solstice was a good, let's call it an astrological representation of the concept of resurrection. That is what they have said in this scholarly article that was just released to the public this December. Now, how did they know that it was structured toward the winter solstice? You should know that the constellations, the stars in the sky, appear to actually move ever so slightly every year. And that it takes literally 25,000 years for them to come back to the place where you're looking at them today. This is sometimes called the Great Year. Now, these tombs were not made 25,000 years ago, but because the constellations seem to move a little bit, the winter solstice does not occur exactly in the same point in the sky as it did during the time that these tombs were made. They actually used, this is fascinating, they actually used a computer package now that allows them to look at where these stars, where these events would occur in the sky during the exact time that these tombs were made. And so they were able to tell that it is connected directly to the winter solstice by using these incredible tools which are now available. I have been told sometimes by some that I am following dated logic. That is what there are those who would like to argue with me about the reality of the Kemetic tradition, about the permanence of the Kemetic tradition, about the fact that the Kemetic tradition has influenced the modern world and actually influenced Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. They sometimes say, your information is old, brother. And they even accuse me of using several scholars that were getting their information from nowhere. That's how they say it. One of the scholars that they mention is Gerald Massey. I want to say to you that while you don't often hear me reference Gerald Massey in my stuff, partially because I certainly read Gerald Massey, but what I do is I then go to track down what Gerald Massey is referring to. So I'm going to tell you about the stuff that he was referring to without in some ways mentioning him, right? It's not that I got it from him. He certainly was one of the sources that opened the door for many of us, that allowed us to recognize that there were things that we should investigate further, but I no longer need to use him as a source. I want for you to hear, however, that as they say that Gerald Massey and Albert Churchward and Albert Boyne Kuhn and others are saying things that are ridiculous and not without any merit, I always say to them, what exactly did they say that is incorrect? And that is when they start scratching, itching, and stuttering, because they are simply mouthing the words of modern European scholars who would like to say that they are not true. And let's also say one of the other reasons why they do that is because they, whether they recognize it or not, are celebrating or putting forward the primacy of the Jewish and Christian tradition. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. But listen to what Gerald Massey said about the winter solstice in relation to Kemet. And I want you to tell me that what he said was wrong. I want you to tell me if what he said was wrong. He says the tat pillar, by the way, he renders the word jed as tat. He's still talking about the same thing. The tat pillar was founded in the winter solstice as the figure of a stability that was to be eternal. In the mythos, the tat is a type of the sun in the winter solstice that has the power of returning from the lowest depth and thus completing the eternal road. In the eschatology, it is the God in person as Ptah Sekeri. I might show you that image as well. Or Asar, or Osiris, the backbone and support of the universe. Horus erecting the tat in Sekhem was raising Osiris from the sepulchre, the Father re-erected as the Son in the typical resurrection and continuity of the human spirit in the afterlife. You're going to see this quote in Ancient Egypt, Light of the World. By the way, it has 2 volumes, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World on page 190. One of the reasons why people attack disingenuously Gerald Massey today is because when he was writing this stuff over 100 years ago, they did not actually have the form in which they cited their work. So he simply was describing something that he was able to understand based on what he had read. But those forms that we use today, APA form, MLA form, they didn't exist yet. So they would like for you to say that he just came up with this out of the blue and that his work is both antiquated and incorrect. Well, tell me why we now have a scholarly article which was released in the the Journal of Mediterranean Archaeology and archaeometry. Archaeometry, by the way, imagine what that means. That's the study of the actual measurements of the ancient world. Fascinating. Solar geometry and the organization of the annual cycle through architecture and the funerary landscape in Qubet El Hawa. This is the article that came forward. And you had better believe, for those of you who are watching and will be watching the debate, this article is going to be displayed. It's going to be displayed. Take a look, by the way. Look at that crowd. This is sunrise on the winter solstice at Karnak Temple, at the temple that our ancestors called Ipet Isut, the southern temple. Do you see how perfectly the sun rises down the central corridor? Do you think that that was a mistake? Do you see the crowds of people that are there to see the sunrise on the winter solstice? I want you to understand that your Kemetic ancestors looked at the movements of Ra. They celebrate the movements of Ra in allegory for our journey on this physical plane. And that is where we end up getting the celebration that then becomes Christmas. Now, I want you to take a look at this. This is the debate. It is called, Was Christianity Stolen from Kemet? And it is going to be Ironically, we schedule it on what most people would call Christmas Eve. It should be fun at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can someone please put the link to tickets, the Eventbrite, in the chat? I can't do it all right here. I only have one screen as well. Can someone please put the link in the chat? I am asking that our Shrine family come out big to support my arguments, to support the arguments that were brought to us by our elder and ancestor scholars, and to acknowledge where these traditions come from. Trust me, folks on the other side are going to be heavy in the house. We're going to see folks from the Hebrew Israelite community, the Christian apologetic community, and even the atheist community. They going to be heavy. I would like your support. We are now less than a week away, and I have been really working on my presentation for a very long time. I'm really looking forward to how this is going to come forward. Please be there. So as we're moving forward, I want you to look at this. What are we seeing? Can you see this is an animation? This is an animation. Did it stop because I switched another screen? Maybe. This is an animation that you will see that represents how the earth moves around the sun. And you'll even see that ball moving around the earth. That's the moon. So you're going to see how the earth moves around the sun. And because of the tilt of the earth, it gives the sun very interesting movements, at least from our vantage point on earth. Now, keep in mind, we're what is moving around the sun. But from our vantage point, the sun is moving. We're the ones that are moving around the sun. The sun is not moving around the earth. By the way, you should know that early Christian scholars did argue that the sun was moving around the earth, right? But you should know that our Kemetic ancestors understood the nature of things very, very early. So you can actually see these 4 days in which the sun does some interesting things from our vantage point on earth. I keep saying from our vantage point on earth because we should know it's not the sun's movements that actually we're studying. It's really the earth's movements, but it appears to be the sun moving. Okay, that's what we're looking at. Almost like when you're driving in a car and you're looking down and you look up all of a sudden and it looks like you might be still and the things around you are moving. Did you ever have that sensation? Sometimes it can be a little disconcerting. It even becomes more obvious sometimes when there's a car that's moving next to you. It seems almost sometimes like it's saying still and you're moving, or you're sitting still and it's moving. These are in some ways illusions based on our vantage point to an object. But on 4 times of our year, we see that the sun does something curious. At the top, we see the vernal equinox. The vernal equinox, that is the spring, vernal is spring, the spring equinox. And equinox comes from the word equi or equal, and nox meaning night. So that is the day that we have equal amounts of sun, of light, than we do darkness. They are equal on the equinox. You also see the autumnal or fall equinox. We also see that we have an equal amount of sun and an equal amount of darkness. Now, what do I mean equal amount of sun and equal amount of darkness? I know that you, like me, were probably told by your parents that you had better be back in the house before the sun went down. And you know that in the summer, you got to play all the time, do all kinds of crazy stuff. In fact, I'm going to tell you, your parents probably had a different measure by which you had to come inside during the summer. Because you could be out almost to 9 p.m. as a little kid. But then when it got colder and we were looking at the winter, now all of a sudden, it seems like the sun sets like at 5 p.m., at 6 p.m. What gives? You have less sun. This is based on our tilt. The tilt means that at certain times of the year, based on where you are on the globe, you're going to have more hours of sunlight, or less hours of sunlight. And then we actually see during the summer solstice and the winter solstice that something curious happens. Based on our movements that we have for the winter solstice, this is the day that's important, that we're talking about today. For the winter solstice, you'll notice that we get less and less sun as we progress towards winter. And then at the winter solstice, on the day of the winter solstice, the sun, when it rises at the lowest point in the sky. And then for 2 more days, it rises in the same point in the sky at a very low point. It's the least amount of sun, and it also rises in the same point. Our ancient ancestors said the sun had died. And then on that next day, after this peculiar period, the sun then rises at a higher point in the sky, thereby meaning that we have more light, and then it actually begins to proceed and rise at a different point in the sky, a higher point in the sky, moving forward from there. So we're looking at the description of the sun dying and the sun being reborn. That is where we get the celebration of the winter solstice that the ancients, the first people to describe the winter solstice, are our Kemetic ancestors. They're not the only people on the planet to recognize the winter solstice, but the first people that we have records of doing it are our Kemetic ancestors. They're the first ones. And then understand that celebration, which would start on, as it does, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then the 24th. Now the sun is rising at a higher point this year. You're actually going to see that is the day that we celebrate the rebirth of the sun. This is the rebirth of the sun, S-O-N, that is analogized as it is really the rebirth of the sun, S-U-N. That celebration goes directly into Christianity from the Kemetic tradition and into Christianity through the traditions of the Greeks and the Romans, as they had a celebration they called Saturnalia. And that celebration is what becomes Christmas. Now, sometimes followers of the Christian tradition will actually say to me, well, Jesus wasn't actually born on Christmas Day. That is our celebration, but it's not actually something that occurred that way. Let me say to you very clearly that my response usually burns their biscuits. My response is, yes, I agree Jesus wasn't born on Christmas Day, because the narrative of Jesus Christ is mythological. There was no literal person named Jesus of Christ, known as Jesus of Nazareth, that actually was born on any day of the year. This is a mythological designation. Now, let me say to you that saying it's a mythological designation doesn't mean that it's irrelevant. It's not that I'm trying to dismantle Christianity, or I'm trying to say Jesus ain't real, forget Jesus. That is not the energy that I'm bringing to this. If we remythologize our traditions as they were meant to be understood, what ends up happening is we then understand that these traditions are about us, not about something that one person did at one time. It is much more powerful for us to focus on the myth that we are describing rather than a description of a historical point. Because then this just is something amazing that some dude wearing sandals with long hair and a long beard did. Wow, he's amazing. What you have to recognize is that this narrative is supposed to be about our resurrection. It's supposed to be about our ability to defeat death. It's supposed to be about our ability to be as eternal as the movements of Ra, the movements of the sun. You should recognize that in this instance, in most instances, if you truly understand the usage of myth, that the myth is more powerful than history. History is something that happened at one point that someone else did. But myth is that which is always occurring. It tells us how to be. It tells us how to live. If you are celebrating the death of the sun and the rebirth of the sun, just think about what that might mean for how you live your life. Doesn't this give you an opportunity to slough off, to sand off, to discard those things that you have done that are not allowing you to be truly divine? To actually restore ma'at with those people around you? Even those ancestors who have made their transition. Isn't that possible? Isn't that possible? So I want us to recognize that this is important. This is important. As we recognize it, what we will be able to do is we will be able to let these wonderful movements manage movements in our life. They're not just something that someone did that was amazing. There's something that we did as we understood how to be divine. That is what we need to do. And so I want us to recognize the power of this tradition, the power of the as above, so below. This is important. This is important. I see a question about Gobekli Tepe. Gobekli Tepe is very early, It is very clear that other people on the planet also recognize the movements of the sun. But I want you to recognize that the site that we should be looking at to see that our ancestors were recognizing the movements of the sun and the things that would occur, we should first look at Nabta Playa, which is older than the Gobekli Tepe. One of the things that they do sometimes is they look at pottery that existed around Gobekli Tepe and they say, this is Gobekli Tepe. That's almost like coming into your home and seeing a picture of your grandmother and assuming that the stuff that you're doing today on December 18th is something that your grandmother did. Anyway, I'm trying to simplify a complex argument, but Nabta Playa is older than Gobekli Tepe. Your ancestors recognized this before. Let's take this to another step. Your ancestors also connected it to resurrection. It's more than just recognizing the movements of the sun. It's about how we rendered the movements of the sun should actually work in our lives. That is what goes into the Christian tradition. And if we look carefully, it should be obvious. Why else would we see Jesus with the sun behind his head? That's a halo. Wait a minute. Isn't the halo the sun? No, the halo's a halo. Wait, I don't understand. That's clearly the sun. No, a halo's a halo. Listen, you need to understand that if you pay close attention, if you keep an open mind, it should be clear that we're talking about a narrative that is older than the Christian tradition. This is important. Okay, let's continue. I'm trying to answer some of the questions, but of course, I'm not able to see them all as I do the presentation. Let's continue. Let's continue from here. Okay, let's talk about what the solstice is. And we should recognize that in many ways, it is the remembering of Ra. And it is becoming Asar, the imperishable one. The solstice is the shortest day of the year, meaning we have the least amount of sunlight. It is the beginning of winter. It's the preparation for a period of colder months and less sunlight. It becomes the celebration of light because you can really take light for granted until it is disappearing. Imagine if the sun, we never saw the sun again. In a very short period of time, we would cease to exist. It is the sun that allows us to live on this earth. And so as it seems like we're getting less sun, and then we get more sun, our ancestors began to celebrate that practice. It's also a celebration of the cultivation of the earth's vitality. This is one of the reasons why, and I'm not going to even show that, I might show this at the debate. This is one of the reasons why we know that Kemetic people would take boughs of palm into their homes before the winter solstice. In some ways, remember, these plants are growing because they're receiving the rays of the sun, right? So taking the plants into your home in some ways is almost like you trying to protect this vitality, this growth of the earth during the time that the sun is dying, so that you can celebrate it coming forward again. Why else would people today also take evergreen plants? The Kemetic people are taking evergreen plants. Why would they also take other evergreen plants into their home and then put a star on the top of it? Is it not obvious what we're celebrating here? The winter solstice is also a recognition of our permanence, our ability to be immortal beings. It is the celebration of as above, so below. Light is always in the process of its victory over darkness. And we should also think maybe the seasons are our lives as well. That there are things that you should be doing at certain parts of the day, and things that you should be doing at certain parts of the year, and things you should be doing at certain parts of your life. Who are you in the narrative? This is when we re-mythologize these traditions. Who are you in the narrative? Take a look at this image. What are you seeing? What is this? And I also want you to tell me where it is. Where is it? Do you know where this artifact is? Do you know where this artifact is? And what is it representing? Do we have any answers? Let's see what answers you're giving me. I know there's probably a short delay. I want you to tell me. Okay, I'm seeing a few other people. I see Cameron Maisie says, can't prove it. What can't you prove? And he says, not here to debate, but celebrate. That's good. Now listen, debate does not have to be negative and tearing one down and all of those things. We don't have to do that, right? We don't have to do that. Debate can be also sharing ideas. Debate can also be our ability to understand traditions. I'm going back and I'm seeing Cameron Maisie is saying, you're an Igbo American. We say we are the original ancient Egyptians. No, I think that what you're doing is you're taking the literal arguments that have become prevalent in the Western world. I'm not saying that my grandfather was King Tutankhamun. I'm saying that when I say the ancestors, I'm talking about those great Africans on the continent of Africa. I don't have to literally be a son in that very line. I'm not making that literal an argument. And in fact, when you go to the continent and they pour libation, you don't just see the person that's pouring libation say, I'm pouring libation to my grandfather, I'm pouring libation to my uncle. By the way, the rest of you, forget the rest of you. This is just my lineage. On the continent, we celebrate the ancestors as a more universal global description, particularly of those who have come forward in that region. That's what we do. So I'm not trying to say that somehow my lineage draws directly into Kemet. I've never thought that I needed to actually trace it back directly to Kemet. That is an overly simplistic analysis. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. Okay. I want you to recognize that one of the reasons why people think that I'm saying that that we are actually the Egyptians and we don't know it, is because they're listening to the argument of the Judeo-Christian narrative that tries to say exactly who the modern people on the world are. There's no need for us to do that. Just as our Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters say that they're actually the Hebrews and people have misrepresented who they are. There's no need to go into a literal argument of that sort. I'm talking about African ancestors, and I'm talking as a modern African. That is what I'm referring to, just so you know. Okay? Let's see. Hetepu Sengastin out in Benue. I see a few answers. Sen Jason says morning. She has the throne on her head. And Tisha says, Anken Ma'at, I always mess up her name. Anken Ma'at, full member of the shrine. It looks to be Ast in mourning. Yes, yes. That's exactly what we're seeing. That is exactly what we're seeing. I've recently heard you say it. Beautiful Kemet was the flower of African civilization. Yes. Yes, that is what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. Okay. Just to clarify. And you are seeing Ast. This is a beautiful jet black Ast. And she's holding her arm like this because she is mourning the death of Asar. In many ways, this symbol, because this image becomes extremely important because Ast dealt with a lot of messed up stuff, just like we have to deal with messed up stuff in our lives. That's the reason why Ast, who the Greeks call Isis, the concept of who she was and what she did goes into the rest of the world and influences the rest of the world, perhaps more than any other mythological narrative that comes out of Kemet. Because she is a sacred, divine woman, but she has to deal with the decadence and the problems that we have here on this earth. And she's victorious. She deals with the murder of her husband. She has to raise a child on her own. Black women, I know you don't have to do that, right? That's just a mythological story. We don't see any divine allegory in the narrative we have today. Black women don't have to raise Black children without their divine mate. You should know that's precisely what we see very often. But she is victorious because that son is raised. That son does become the image of his father on the physical plane, and his father becomes once again alive on the ancestral plane. So this is very important. This image, no one told me where it is. It's actually in the Brooklyn Museum. It is in the Brooklyn Museum. It's in the Brooklyn Museum. Ironically, it was made during the time that the Greeks were in Kemet. They were trying to make a commentary about what they thought about her. Anyway, and it is dark. She's not actually green in this image. If you see it closer, you're going to see that it's supposed to be black. She's supposed to be very, very dark here. And it's a very important image. So how does this tradition go into these celebrations that we have today? Look at this beautiful Black family under the tree, celebrating, giving presents to each other. I don't want to take away a time that we celebrate giving to the people that we love, that we celebrate our sacrifice. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I want us to do is recognize that its origins are older, and in fact, we own the origins. What I want us to do is to recognize that as we look at the rebirth or the birth period, this is a narrative that is not a literal historical story, but a narrative on how we should live. It begins with the story of the resurrection of Asar. Look at this, very African looking. That's a big nose, y'all. That's a big nose, y'all. That's a Michael B. Jordan prominent African proud nose. When Michael B. Jordan looks at you and that nose is on his face, you see nothing but royalty. I'm telling you. This statue is in the Louvre in France. And I want you to recognize that as we look at this period, we also see that Asar was connected to these evergreen trees. Look at these images. These are actually images in the Western world that are actually mimicking how Asar was rendered at the latest period, after Kemet was actually no longer under the control of the Kemetic people. The Greeks and the Romans take these narratives and begin to use them as their own. Do you notice that they're all around a pine cone? This is a reference to those conifer trees, some of the oldest trees on the planet. And now we actually take those trees into our home. These pine cones become sacred in other traditions. Did you notice that Buddha's head seems to look like a pine cone. Did you notice that even when we go into the tradition of the Assyrians, we see them holding the pine cone as sacred? As we think about the solstice, I want you to also recognize that our Kemetic ancestors, as we look at what is generally called the wheel or the calendar of Dendara, which was actually in a temple in Kemet, a temple that was consecrated to Het Heru, who the Greeks later called Hathor. It was later dynamited out of the ceiling so that they could take it to the Louvre. It is still at the Louvre today. In fact, it's kind of off to the side. Anika and I struggled to find it, but we did eventually find it. What is in the ceiling today is a replica. I'm talking about in the actual temple in Kemet, there's a replica. The original was stolen. It was theft. They took it away. But in the Kemetic narrative, there were at least 3 seasons. There was Akhet, the period where we saw the waters of the Hapi come forward. There was Peret. This is the period where growth occurs. And then there was Shemu, where the harvest occurs. Why am I telling you that? Because if we are practicing as above, so below, how do we make these periods work in our life? How do we recognize those things that the divine have given us to allow us to be the people we must be and do the work that we have been divinely ordained to do? That would be the inundation. This is what the divine has given you. The growth is how you cultivate what the divine has given you. And then the harvest is when you recognize what you have been able to achieve, what you have received because of the gifts of the divine. We should look at the seasons, not just as things that occur, not just as periods of the year, but they should remind us of the work that we must do. How are you using the things that you were given? By the way, you may have heard me say this before. That inundation period could have been considered a horrible, horrible moment. Lesser people would have looked at the overflowing of that river, destroying everything, and they might have said, this is a calamity. The Creator is angry with us. But instead, they looked at this flood. Think of how many people die in flood. If you are in tune with the movements of the heavens that tell you when things are going to occur, you can use something that might seem like a calamity, might seem like a curse, might seem like punishment, as an opportunity for you to do the work that the Creator and the ancestors put you on this planet to do. Where is your flood? Where is your flood? Are you crying about the flood, or are you preparing for the flood? Are you mourning the flood, or are you saying, what am I going to do with the flood? Are you in sorrow because the flood came and you weren't prepared, you didn't recognize it? Or were you prepared? And now you're prepared to cultivate those things that come only through the flood. And then when you have the harvest, do you look back on that time and say, I must give thanks? Do you look back on that time and say, I recognize that which I have given, I've attempted to do my best with it, and this is what I've brought forward? Do you see this as a divine solar drama that lives in your life? That is what our ancestors are asking us to do. And you should recognize that when we see the movements of the sun, we actually see that they happen at an equal distance from each other. That in some ways, the sun does something interesting at 4 times of the year. And that if we were going to look at those 4 times of the year being equal from each other, those days being equal from each other, what we could also say is that the sun is on a cross. that the sun is on a cross. Is that not what we see in the image on the left? Is that not what we are seeing? You should recognize that our ancestors were able to look at the movements of the stars. Here you are seeing an image of Sahu, the image that represents the birth of the sun. Today we call him Orion. That's what the Greeks and Romans later called him. I think that's the Romans that use the word Orion, actually. And those stars on Orion's belt point to another star. That other star, when it aligns with those three stars, it points to directly where the sun is going to rise on the day of the resurrection, on the day of the winter solstice. I want you to understand that our ancestors recognize this. You are seeing an image on the left. I took that image myself. This is on the Benben stone, which modern people call the pyramidion. The pyramidion of Amenemhet the First. That's who it was, Amenemhet the First. It's actually on the ground level of the ancient Egypt of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and you're seeing Sahu. I'm not making this up, y'all. I'm not making this up. This is precisely what our ancestors use to motivate them, to allow them to do their great work. So I want you to answer this question. What does this resurrection mean in your life? What should you be preparing for? What do you need to slough off? What is it that must die so that you can be reborn anew? This is truly how we use these great mythos, these great stories, how we use the Sabayit to do the work that we must do. This is not a historical story. This is a story that is always occurring. How must you use it? What does it mean in your life specifically? What are the things that you need to deal with in order to be in divine balance so that you can be reborn anew at the winter solstice? How do you cultivate the energy, the vitality of the earth? Do you have plants in your home that you're cultivating during the winter? It's hard to keep plants alive during the winter. It should be a reminder. It should be a reminder of you cultivating the necessary, the essential vitality of the universe. That is you. That is what you should be doing. Make the winter solstice not just a peculiar solar event. Make the winter solstice not just something you hear that ancient people did and is now Christmas. Ask yourself, what does it mean for me? I want you today to write down 7 things that must die in your life for the winter solstice, and 7 things that will be reborn. 7 things that must die and 7 things that must be reborn. Notice that those 2 together make the number of the pieces of Asar that had to be reassembled in order for him to be resurrected as our divine ancestor that allows symbolically all of us access to the afterlife. You must think of yourself as Asar, growing, vital, conquering death. Do you see these images of plants growing through the dead Asar? The Sa of Asar? This is supposed to be the fact that we should think of him as dead but alive. You must further this journey. You are Asar. And let me read to you a piece from the Renouf translation of the Rayu Purnam Ruangir, that book that has been misnomered as the Book of the Dead. It says, "Here I come, that I may overthrow mine adversaries upon the earth through my dead body, though my dead body be buried. Let me come forth today and walk upon my own legs. Let me have the feet of the glorified. I am a soul, and my soul is divine. It is the eternal force. I and Kepera, the self-produced upon his mother's thigh. This is powerful. And this is exactly what we should be celebrating in this period. Do the work, family. Do the work. Our ancestors allow you to draw breath on the physical plane because they demand, they require, they need you. It is our time. We are the ancestors that we are waiting for. Do the work. So with that, family, I say the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Let me go into our final affirmation. And our final affirmation will be the Rupu. It is Rupu Nuku Amiku, Kemam Keperu, and Enter Hayu. I am that I am, a shining being dwelling in the light of the Most High. Twanter. Thank you to the divine. With that, I want to remind you that I am asking for your support. Please, I really am asking that you come forward in the masses so that we can recognize that these traditions are ours. I'm asking you to come forward and to, I should say to you, Garfield and I have done a lot of work not to actually have this discussion be nasty and disgraceful, but to have a scholarly debate. And I'm so proud that we've gotten to the point where we are able to do that, where we're not going to tear each other down personally, where we're just sharing ideas. I'm going to tell you, though, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. Thankfully, I'm hoping that there won't be animosity, however the outcome is judged, and we'll be able to be brothers once more. So I'm asking that you come forward. I'm asking that you support. I'm really hoping to see so many of you in the house as we do this. It is next Saturday. It's going to be amazing. Donnie, Brother Donnie says that debate ain't happening. It's going to happen. It is. You don't think it's going to happen? You think someone's going to I'm not running away. You think that someone's going to run away? What's happening? Uh-oh. Did you get wind of something that I don't have wind of? I hope that that's not what's happening. I'm quite sure that as long as we have been talking about this debate, it is going to happen. And I'm really hoping that you all will be in the house to see it happen. I want to repost. I saw that Sen Jason posted it earlier. I want to repost the link so that you have it. Here it is. In fact, I'm going to show it on the screen. I didn't show anything on the screen. My goodness. And I want to actually repost it if I can. I can't seem to copy it, unfortunately. It ain't easy when you're trying to I can't repost it. If you look up, you'll see it's the Eventbrite link is there. Sen Jason, can you put it in the chat again so that folks don't have to scroll up? So that folks will be able to join. It's going to be a very interesting debate. Remember, my goal is not to tear down Christianity. My goal is to say that these traditions are ours, but they're older than we've been told. And that these traditions are mythological. In fact, that they are not just something that occurred at one point, but they are always occurring. Dua, Sen Jason, for the assist there. You'll actually see it there as well. So with that, Let me say the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. I'm looking forward to seeing you all at both the Winter Solstice celebration on Wednesday in Central Park and hopefully for the debate next Saturday as well. I might actually have an after discussion that occurs so that we're able to sort of talk about the larger issues in the debate. And you'll see a link for that coming up soon too. Okay? It's supposed to be led by Abu Ka, one of the priests of the Shrine of Ma'at. It's going to be an interesting discussion, an after discussion. Okay, so please come forward for that as well. With that, let me say Shem and Ma'at, go forth in divine balance and have a wonderful day. Remember, you have homework. 7 things that need to die and 7 things that must be born. We will see you soon. Shem and Ma'at, go forth in divine balance.